Okay, onwards and over to our SUMIF then. So the same sort of principle, we've got certain criteria that we need to meet. We only want to sum, in this case, the recharge amount if it matches a particular project code. Put a quick total in here to start with. Let's just do a quick total in there, quick sum. All right. So the project code, I only want to calculate the recharge amount or sum it if it matches the code. So I want to know how much have we spent on each of these projects. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my equals SUMIF this time. Okay, there it is, SUMIF. It's just a single criteria, so I can use SUMIF. Now it needs an extra argument in there. So once again, I'm just going to go into the fx to show the function arguments that are needed. All right, so first of all, I need my range. Where am I checking? What am I checking? I'm checking my project code, which is here. Therefore, I'm checking it in the project code range. I haven't named it, so I'm just going to select it accordingly. Just highlighting the cells for the project range. I do need to lock that on so that when I copy it down, it will adjust the project code, but not the range that it's checking. So I'm going to press my F4 key to lock both the start and finish points, make them absolute for that range. My criteria. First of all, I want to check for this particular project, which is in H2. That's my criteria. When I copy that down again, it will extend to the other project codes. And the range that I want to sum in this case is a different range. If it was the same range that you were checking and summing, then you could leave this blank, but it is a different range. So I'm going to select my recharge amount column before clicking on OK. So 552 on that first project there. If I autofill that down, some of the projects don't appear to be there. And I can see why. I need to go and adjust that because I haven't fixed my second range, my recharge amount range. So, good point. I'm going to go back into the FX, or you could do it manually up at the top. So I fixed the first range, but I omitted to fix my sum range. So I need to select that, add in my dollars, pressing the F4 key once again. I autofill that down again. That looks a little better. Again, if one of these recharge amounts changes, it will automatically update all of those. If I total these at the bottom, it should give me the same total as I've got down here. Okay, so if I just do my sum function at the bottom there, once again. But if I was on a different sheet or something and I just wanted to make sure that those two values were the same, I could do equals this cell equals this cell, and it should equate to a true option. Right, so it's just saying that little calculation I did there. So equals the first total equals the second total cell. It equates to being true. Okay, now perhaps a little more complex in terms of using our functions. If I wanted to count how many projects Jane had been involved in, so how was she involved in this particular project or this one and this one, to count it, then I could use something called count ifs, because I've got two criteria. Okay, so I could, this is my first criteria would be my project code. My second criteria would be Jane checking in the name column. Again, I can do that just the same with my SUMIFS because I've got more than one criteria that I want to check. All right, so I'm going to start it off equals a SUMIF. Because I've got more than one criteria, double clicking on these SUMIFS. To get these in the right order with the syntax there, I'm going to click on the FX button to open up my function arguments. So the sum range that I'm using is the recharge amount because that's what I want to total if it matches both of my criteria. So selecting the range and remembering, of course, to make it absolute. But if you'd named it, then you wouldn't need to do that. The criteria that I'm going to check for first of all is going to be the project code. So where am I checking for that? What's my criteria range? It's the project code range in column A here. Again, making sure that I fix that, make it absolute. My first criteria, I'm checking for the project code, the top one here. And here's the crunch point, because when I copy this function across or down for the other projects, for example, or across for the names, I want to make sure that I'm only fixing part of this reference. It's what we call a mixed reference. So in this case, I need to make sure that for the project, I need to make sure that the column letter is fixed, because I don't want it, when I copy it across the columns, I don't want that to change. I want it to be locked on to this column. All right, so I'm just going to make sure that I'm fixing just the column letter. So I'm pressing my F4 key, press it once, it makes it totally absolute, $2. Press it again, it goes to the row, press it again, and it's now fixed the column letter here, but not the row number, because I want the row to change to look at the different options down that column. Now, my second criteria is Jane, first of all, then John and Sarah and so on. So my criteria range, where am I checking for that name? It's going to be, of course, in the name range. So selecting the name range is my second criteria range that I want to check, locking it on. And then my second criteria, I'm first of all checking for Jane, which is here in cell I-19. Again, when I copy it down, Jane's column, I want to make sure that it stays locked onto Jane's name. So this time I'm fixing the row number. So I want the dollar in front of the row number. Again, I could just type it in. If I press, it will press my F4 key, it will circle through the different options, and I'm going to leave it on $19. So I'm locking it onto the row that's got the name in it. If I did have further criteria, you can continue on and do a third criteria and so on and so forth. Just by scrolling down, it will extend the function arguments box accordingly. So OK to that. And I should now be able to autofill that quite happily down the column for Jane, and then take that across the columns for the different names. So as I mentioned before, I'm just going to sum these at the bottom here. And as I mentioned, you could just count how many projects has Jane been involved in, how many has she been involved in that particular project or the next one, and so on. Again, the totals across here, just making sure that it's totaling across the row there. And hence I should, if I put my sum function in the grand total box here, does prefer to, Excel tends to prefer to total down the columns. If I enter that in, once again, I should have the same total, which indeed I have. I could do that cross-check on it again. I could even add it into this one to make sure that all three are the same.